Okay, so in today's session, we'll focus on view and controller implementation. We'll try to capture values from various screen elements. Of simple form. We'll try to capture values from various screen elements of simple form by writing the code in controller with the help of event handler. And we'll try to display those values as output message. We'll try to focus on these topics. In the next session, we'll try to capture values from list and table. After that, we can have doubt session. But as of today, we'll try to focus on these things, capturing values from various screen elements of simple form, and we'll try to display values as part of message. So here you can see, let me go back to simple form. The simple form contains several screen elements here, like input fields, input with password, checkbox, switch, rating, slider, date picker, progress indicator, time picker, and then there is date time field along with the text area. There's a drop down box, combo box, multi combo box, and multi input here. So what I want to do is I want to capture values of these various screen elements here. Input fields, checkbox, switch, rating, slider, progress, date picker, time picker, and drop down, combo box, multi combo box, multi input, as well as radio button group. So we'll try to capture values of all these various screen elements here up to radio button group. In the next session, we'll focus on other screen elements. So here, write step-by-step procedure. Step 1 is at view level. We need to make sure that screen elements are available with ID property. So whichever screen elements you want to access for capturing the values, for those screen elements, there should be ID property. At view level, make sure that the screen elements are created with ID property. Then only you can capture values of those various screen elements. Step 2 is, again, at view level, we'll try to create one button. We'll create one button with press event. Button contains press event. And for press event, we'll try to assign event handler. At view level, we'll create a button with press event and we'll try to assign event handler. Similarly, step 3, at controller level, so at controller level, we'll try to implement event handler. And we'll try to capture values from various screen elements. So that functionality we are going to implement. We are going to implement event handler with a functionality. The functionality is to capture the values from screen elements. The main functionality in this event handler is to capture values from various screen elements. Step 4, you can save all the files, run the app. Okay, so what we'll try to do is, first we'll try to create the screen elements with ID property. Create screen elements with ID property. So whichever screen elements you want to capture, for those screen elements, you need to use ID property. That is step 1. So let us go to the screen elements. Say suppose here you can see there is a label with input field. You can notice this. For this, from input field of user ID, I want to capture the value from this input field. So let us provide some ID for this input field. Example, user ID. Let me provide that as ID. Similarly, there is second input field for first name. Let me provide ID here. Example, F name. Input field for last name, I am providing ID as L name. There is input field for email ID. Let me provide ID as email ID. Input field for country. So provide ID as, for example, country. The ID must be unique for the entire screen. For the entire screen or an entire view, ID must be unique. It can be anything, but should be unique. So there is input field with ID here. For example, this is for salary field. Let me provide ID as salary. Then input field for mobile number. Let me provide ID, for example, mobile number. And then there is input field for password. Input field for password. So let me provide ID here also. For example, password. And there is a checkbox. For checkbox, let me provide ID here. For example, checkbox. You can give any ID, but it should be unique. For checkbox, I'm providing ID as checkbox. Similarly, there is switch screen element. For switch, let us provide ID as something like switch here. There is rating indicator. For rating indicator, I'm using ID as rating. There is slider. For slider, let me provide ID as slider. Then there is progress indicator. Let me provide ID for progress indicator. For example, progress. Then there is date picker. So for date picker, let me provide ID, that is, example, date picker. And time picker. So ID as, example, time picker. And then this date time input. Date time input is outdated. Let me remove this. Let me go to text area. For text area also, I want to provide ID. Example, text area. And then there is a drop-down box here. That is select screen element. Select screen element is related to drop-down box. So for select screen element, let me use ID here as example drop-down. On select screen element, ID is drop-down. Similarly, there is combo box. On combo box, let me use ID here. as combo box. And then there is multi-combo box here. For multi-combo box, let us use ID here. As multi-combo box. And then there is multi-input. Multi-input, I'm using ID as multi-input here. Then there is radio button group. Radio button group, let me place it here. After combo box, I'm using radio button group. For radio button group, let me use ID. For example, let me provide it as radio button, radio BT group. ID as radio BT group. You can give any name, but it should be unique. So whichever screen elements you want to utilize in controller, whatever screen elements is available with ID property, those screen elements you can access in controller. Inside event handler, you can capture values from those screen elements, or you can assign the values to the screen elements. So drop down combo box, radio button group, multi combo box, multi input, etc. So for all these screen elements, ID property is available. Then only you can capture values from those screen elements by writing code in event handler within the controller. But at view level, there should be ID property for those screen elements. Now, not only that, let me create one button with press event, and we'll try to assign one. We'll try to assign one event handler here. We'll create a button. For button, press is a standard event, and we can assign event handler. So let me do that. For example, after multi input, I want to do it here. You can create one dummy label. And create one dummy label. After that, let me add one button. First time we are using button inside simple form. Button from sap.m library. Button contains text. Button contains text. So let me use text as, for example, submit data. And the type of the button, let me use, for example, green color button. Green color button, you can use type as accept. Red color button, type as reject. Blue color button, emphasized. Let me use accept. Width, for example, 250 pixel. And then the most important is, you can see press is the standard event of a button. Press is a standard event. E indicates event. Press is a standard event. For that, let me assign some event handler here. And that event handler you have to implement inside controller. Every view contains a controller. So let me assign event handler. For example, submit data EH. Submit data EH, that's the event handler. Now this event handler we should implement in controller. So step 2 is completed. At view level, we created button, press event, we have assigned event handler. Now let us focus on step 3. At controller level, implement event handler with the functionality so that you can capture values from screen elements. So submit data EH, we have to implement inside controller. So go to controller file, Object view contains object controller. Work list view contains work list controller. Object view contains object controller. Every view contains a separate controller. Please remember that. So object view contains object controller. So go to object controller, scroll down. This is a standard code. Don't worry about that. Just scroll down and go to this last event handler. After last event handler, what you do is use comma separator. Add this event handler. Submit data EH. To implement event handler, you have to use function keyword. And use flower brackets. Use flower brackets, and within flower brackets, you can implement your functionality. So in my case, I want to capture values from various screen elements of simple form. And as of today, I just want to display values as a message. But in the coming days, we are going to send values to backend via OData service. And through backend OData service, we execute insert, delete, update operations. That we are going to do it in the coming days. After capturing values from various screen elements, we can send values to backend system via OData service. We can execute insert, delete, update operations at OData service level for inserting data, deleting data, or updating data. So as of today, just we'll try to display values as message after capturing values from screen elements. So don't worry about backend interaction. We'll do it in the coming days. Today's focus is only on capturing values and displaying values as message. So before writing the code, let me add some various important points here. So all SAP UI5 or Fiori applications follows MVC architecture. Don't forget that. All UI5 and Fiori applications which internally uses UI5 framework, it follows MVC architecture. That is model view controller. So technically, model is nothing but OData service with a database operations here. Model is nothing but our OData service with database operations. And view at view level, view is nothing but a screen with screen elements. View is technically screen with screen elements. And controller, at controller level, what we do is we try to implement event handlers with various functionalities. Event handlers with various functionalities. So whatever may be the application, ultimately it contains model, view, and controller. It follows MVC architecture. So here, model is technically OData service with database operations. View is screen with screen elements. Controller is event handlers with various functionalities. So as part of controller, there will be only event handlers. In event handlers, there will be various functionalities. Just remember these things. And not only that, here, so every screen element contains collection of properties. Every screen element contains collection of properties. Don't forget that. Every screen element contains collection of properties, and each property contains two methods here. That's the first point you need to notice for today's session. There can be a screen element which contains collection of properties, but every property is basically associated with two methods by default. One is getter method, another is setter method. So there will be two methods by default for every property. Each property of screen element contains two methods, getter method and setter method. Getter method is basically to capture value from screen element. Getter method is simply to capture value from screen element. And setter method is to assign value to the screen element. Setter method is to assign value to the screen element. Getter method to capture value from the screen element. Every property of a screen element contains two methods by default. Okay, just remember that basic note. So here, if you want to capture value from screen element, you have to trigger getter methods of that respect to screen element. So first, what you need to do, you need to use this dot get view in order to access a view. In order to access a view, you need to use this dot get view. This is a standard reference. This is a standard reference. It's a self-reference of a controller. By using this dot get view, we are going to access the reference of a view. After that, you can use by ID. Use dot by ID method. And here provide the ID of screen element. Provide the ID of screen element. If you want to capture the value, you can use getter method here on that screen element. If you want to assign the value, you can use setter method here. Very simple. Getter method to capture the value from screen element by using its ID. Setter method is to assign the value from the screen. Setter method is to assign value to the screen element by using its ID. So here, we'll try to use getter methods as of now. So what is the ID of first screen element? So let me go back. ID of first input screen element in this case is user ID. So let me take that ID here. So we are trying to use this dot get view. It will access the view. Dot by ID, ID of first input field, that is user ID. So you are getting the access reference of that input screen element user ID. For that user ID input field, you can call a get method, getter method. So input field contains a value property here. So there will be two methods, get value and set value. Value is a property, so there will be two methods, get value and set value. So here in this case, you can use getter method, that is get value. Value is a property of input field, so you can use get value method here to capture value. If you want to assign the value, you have to use setter method. Set value. So as of now, let me use get value. It will capture user ID value. You can hold that value. You can hold that value by using variable var keyword and provide that variable something like user ID. So this dot get view will get view reference. Dot by ID, it will get screen element reference. After that screen element, you can call a getter method to capture a value or setter method to assign the value. So in this case, we are capturing user ID value. We are holding in a separate variable by using var keyword. Var is a JavaScript keyword to hold the value in a variable. Similarly, you can use this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of that screen element. ID of second input field is f name. Let me copy that ID here. Provide it in double quotes. And it's an input field. It contains value property. So you can use get value method to capture the value. And ultimately, you'll get first name value here. Similarly, this dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of next input field, that is last name here, L name. So you can provide that ID here, and you can call get value method because it's also an input field. So you'll get last name value. Now in this case, instead of writing this dot get view every time, you can write a shortcut syntax here. You can directly use this dot get view. Write it only once. You will get view reference here. You can get view reference, and that view reference, you can use it here. So you need not use this dot get view every time in every line for every screen element. Just you can get view reference by using this dot get view. You will get view reference. After that view reference dot by ID, you'll get screen element reference. Then you can call getter method or a setter method. On view reference, you can use dot by ID method, provide the ID of screen element and call getter method or setter method. So this dot get view will get view reference. After that view reference, you can use dot by ID method, provide the ID of screen element and call getter method or setter method. You can also write it like this. Or else for each screen element, you can use on each screen element, you can use this dot get view dot by ID. So you can use any syntax, it doesn't matter, whichever is comfortable for you. Let me use line by line. Okay, let me go for other input fields like this dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of next screen element, that is input field with email ID. Email ID is also an input field here. Use get value method to capture the value. We'll get email ID here. Similarly, let me try on other input fields. So there is country. Let me provide that ID here. Country input field ID, salary input field ID, and then mobile number. And similarly, there is password field also. Password field is also an input field here. The type is password, but it's an input field with ID as password. So type is password for input field. The ID of input field is password here. So let me use that ID. Password field is also an input field. It contains value property. So there will be getter method and setter method by default. To capture the value, we are using getter method, that is get value. So you can use where country here to hold the value. Where salary to hold that value. Mobile number to hold its value. Password. So in this case, if you closely observe these input fields, so here what we have done is for all these input fields, ID property is provided. For all these input fields, ID property is provided here. By using that ID, we are accessing that screen element in controller. At view level, screen element contains ID. In controller, we can access that screen element. That's the advantage of using ID. And not only that, it contains value property here. It contains value property. So that means there will be two methods by default. Getter method and setter method. So there will be getter method and setter method. So that means here getter method is like get value. Value is a property, so getter method is get value method. Setter method is set value, because value is a property, so you'll get set value by default as a method in general. So here also there is a value property, there will be getter method and setter method. That is get value, set value. The same story is applicable for all these properties. Wherever there is property, for each property there will be two methods in general. That is getter method and setter method. So the point here is every screen element contains collection of properties. Each property contains two methods by default. Each property contains two methods by default. One is getter method. I'm just repeating this note, very important. And then there is a setter method. Simple, important. It should be on your fingertips, because whatever screen elements we create, we try to capture the values from those screen elements to perform the further activities or further database operations. So value is a property here. That's the reason why you are having get value, set value. If there is a width property, then you can use set width, get width. If you want to get width, you can call get width method. If you want to assign the width, you can use set width. So here, not only value property, there is a width property. So there will be two methods, get width and set width. Okay, screen elements with ID. Okay, let me go to the next set of screen elements, that is checkbox, switch, rating, progress, date picker, time picker. Let us try on these things. So here, so for checkbox, there is an ID which we have provided. Switch contains an ID. Rating indicator. Slider. Progress indicator. Date picker. Then there is time picker with ID. Text area. But if you closely observe, for checkbox there is selected property. For switch there is state property. For rating indicator there is value property. For slider there is value property. For progress indicator, percent value property. Similarly, date picker value property, time picker value property, text area value property. So every property contains two methods by default: get value and set value. Don't forget, sorry, getter method and setter method. So here selected is a property of checkbox. So there is a method like get selected, set selected in general. Selected is a property. So by default, according to documentation, in general, you'll get two methods: get selected, set selected. So there is switch, two methods will be applicable. Get, which contains state property. So you can use get state, set state here. Similarly, there is percent value property. For rating indicator slider, there is value property. For progress indicator, there is percent value property. So there is two methods: get percent value, then there is set percent value. That's how the framework is designed. Similarly, there is a time picker. For example, get value, set value, because value is a property. Get value, set value, because value is a property. Say suppose here you can see there is a max property. So you can have two methods: get max, set max. Max value is a property: get max value, set max value. So anything you want to do it dynamic, then you can use getter method or setter method according to your requirement. Every property contains that. Screen elements with ID property. This is screenshot 2. Let me use that. So checkbox contains ID as checkbox. So let me go to controller here. I can use this dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of checkbox. That is, checkbox is ID, and checkbox contains selected property here. So there will be two methods: get selected, set selected. I want to capture the status of checkbox. So you can use get selected here to capture the status of checkbox, whether it is selected or not. This is checkbox status. Get selected, it will capture the status of the checkbox. Whether it is selected or not, you'll get true or false. Similarly, there is switch screen element with ID and it contains state property. Again, you can use the same story here. This dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of switch. Provide the ID of switch. For switch, there is state property. So you can have get state, set state. In my case, I want to call get state. It will capture the status of switch element here. Switch status you can expect here. Expect switch status here. Similarly, you can use this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of next screen element, that is rating indicator. It contains ID as rating. Value is another property. So let me provide ID, that is rating. And rating indicator contains value property. So you can use get value method to capture the value. So each screen element is an individual screen element. We are using this dot get view dot by ID. By providing the ID of that screen element, we are getting the reference of the screen element. Then you can call getter method to capture the value. So in this case, you'll get rating value here. Similarly, this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of next screen element, that is slider. It contains ID as slider and it also contains value property. So let me provide ID as slider. You can call get value to capture value from slider. You'll get slider value. This is rating value. Here you'll get slider value. Similarly, there is progress indicator with ID property and percent values of property. So this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of progress indicator. Provide the ID of progress indicator. For progress indicator, percent values of property. So you can use get percent value method here. Get percent value. So you'll get progress indicator value in this case. Similarly, there is date picker with ID and value property. So use again the same story, this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of date picker. Date picker contains value property, so you can use get value method here. So you'll get date value here. And this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of time picker. Time picker also contains value property, so you can use get value method to capture the value from that screen element. We'll get time value in this case, time picker value. Then there is, after time picker, there is text area. Contains ID and it contains value property. So again, you can use this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of text area. Provide the ID of text area. Text area contains value property, so you can use get value method. We'll get text area value. Something like that. Text area, whatever. Then there are other screen elements like drop down box, combo box. Okay, let me deal with these things now. So there is combo box and drop down box. So here there is drop down box with ID and combo box with ID. But here these are collection of items with the text for display point of view. It's also collection of items with the text mainly. So what you need to do is, in this case, you can go to controller. In controller, you can use this dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of drop down box. Provide the ID of drop down box. That is, ID is drop down box here. Drop down is ID. Drop down is ID. So let us provide that ID here. So drop down box contains collection of items here, basically. It contains collection of items. So you need to capture the selected item. From drop down box, you need to capture the selected item. So you can capture selected item by using get selected item method. It's collection of items. So here you can use get selected item from drop down. That selected item contains what? Text here. Whatever may be the selected item, but it contains text property. So you can use get text method here. Get text. Ultimately, you'll get drop down selected value. Whichever drop down value selected, so that value you'll be able to get it. In this case. Drop down selected value we are going to capture by using get selected item. Get selected item dot get text we have used. This dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of drop down. Drop down contains collection of items, so you need to capture selected item by using get selected item method. But each item contains text property, so you can use get text of that selected item. So here, in this case, we have to capture selected item. From collection of items, we have to capture selected item. And selected item contains some text. So get the reference of drop down. After that, capture selected item from drop down and capture text of selected item from drop down. So that's a process we have implemented. The same thing you can implement even for combo box. Get the reference. Get the reference of combo box. Capture selected item from combo box and capture the text of selected item from combo box. So this is the approach we have followed for these two screen elements. So here, this dot get view dot by ID Provide the ID of combo box here. Combo box contains ID as combo box. So you are going to get the reference of combo box by providing its ID. After that, you need to call get selected item, because combo box is collection of items. Combo box is collection of items. So you need to you need to get selected item by calling get selected item as a method. From that selected item contains text. Every item contains text. Selected item also contains text. So you need to call get text method to capture the selected item text. From combo box, we are going to get it. Combo box value, ultimately, you're going to get it here. On combo box, you need to use get selected item dot get text to capture combo box value. Similarly, there is radio button group here. First, let me save this. So there is radio button group. It also contains ID, and it is collection of radio buttons. So radio button group contains ID, and it is collection of buttons here. Collection of buttons. Collection of buttons. So user can select single radio button. So the selected radio button you need to capture. From that, you need to capture the text. First, get the reference of radio button group by using ID. After that, capture selected radio button. From selected radio button, you need to capture the text. Very simple. Radio button, combo box, drop down box, it allows single selection. There is no chance of multiple value selection. It's single selection. So capture selected radio button. From selected radio button, capture the text. Basically here, assume that this is a selected radio button. So it contains a text. So you can capture the text. So what you need to do, first get the reference of radio button group. First get the reference of radio button group. Then capture the selected button. Button means it's collection of buttons. So here button is radio button, but ultimately you have to capture the selected button, because buttons is aggregation property which contains radio buttons. Capture selected button. After that, capture the text from selected button of radio button group. First get the reference of radio button group, then capture the selected button of radio button group, and finally capture the text from selected button of radio button group. So this approach you need to follow. Radio buttons are technically part of buttons tab here. That's the reason why you have to use get button, get selected button you have to use, because radio buttons are part of buttons aggregation property. So here you can use this dot, get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of radio button group. Radio BT group, that's ID. Let me provide that ID here in double quotes. Radio button group is collection of buttons, so you need to use get selected button. Get selected button. For each radio button, it contains text property. So here, again, you can use get text. Very simple. Ultimately, you'll get radio button here. Whichever radio button is selected, you'll get the text after executing this line. Now, there are other screen elements like multi-combo box and multi-input. Multi-combo box, multi-input, these are going to capture multiple selected values because it allows multiple selections. So multi-combo box allows multiple selections. Multi-input also allows multiple selections. So the coding pattern will change slightly. You have to use for loop. If you want to capture multiple values, because multi-combo box allows multiple selections. Multi-input also allows multiple selections. So to capture multiple selected values, you have to use a for loop. You have to use an iteration. For loop, for is a JavaScript keyword. We can use that. So what we need to do is here, first get the reference of multi-combo box. By using its ID, you can get it. After that, get selected items here. For that, you need to capture selected items, not get. Technically, we call it as capture. Capture the selected items. Because it allows multiple selections, so you have to capture all the selected items from multi-combo box. Here we have to capture selected items, not item. Because multi-combo box allows multiple selections, you have to capture multiple selected items from multi-combo box. After that, what you do is try to use for loop. Use for loop iteration. And within that for loop iteration, what you can do is capture selected text or capture the text of selected item for each iteration. Very simple. Use for loop, capture the text of each selected item. Capture the text of selected item for each iteration. So this is the approach you need to follow. Similarly, here also, get the reference of multi-input. Multi-input also allows multiple selections. So first get the reference of multi-input, then capture the selected tokens. In multi-input, basically we call it as tokens. We have to capture all the selected tokens because multi-input is internally collection of tokens. Even though you have used items, but internally it is tokens by default. So capture selected tokens. After that, use for loop iteration. Use for loop iteration. So within this for loop, you can capture. You can capture the text of selected item for each iteration or selected token for each iteration. So these two screen elements will follow the same approach, more or less. So in both these situations, we have to use for loop. In for loop, you have to capture text for each selected item through iteration. Here also we are using for loop, and in for loop, you have to capture text of selected token for each iteration. So for loop is required. Why? Because multi-combo box, multi-input allows multiple selections. For loop, that means for is a JavaScript keyword, we have to use it. Okay, so here screen elements. So let me go to controller here. So here, first use this dot, get view, dot by ID, provide the ID of multi-combo box here. Multi-combo box is ID, provide that ID. From multi-combo box, you need to capture all selected items. So you call get selected items as a method. Get selected items as a method. So it will capture all selected items from multi-combo box. So I can put it like this here, where multi-combo box items, selected multi-combo box items. Let me put it like this. Selected multi-combo box items. Let us put it like this. Similarly, what you can do is you can use this dot, get view, dot by ID. Provide the ID of multi-input screen element here. Provide the ID of multi-input screen element, that is multi-input. And on multi-input, you have to use get selected tokens here as a method, or get tokens as a method. Supports that method. Get all selected tokens from multi-input. So here we'll get selected multi-input tokens from multi-input screen element. You cannot print these items directly. You have to capture text of each item or each token here. So that's the reason why if you want to print it, it's better to use for loop here. And before for loop, what you do is just use some array. For holding multi-combo box selected items, I want to use one array. For holding multi-input tokens, I want to use some array. So you can declare one array like this, multi-combo box array. Array is declared just by using square brackets here. That's an array. It's an empty array at this stage. This array we are declaring just to hold collection of selected multi-combo box items with its text. Similarly, I want to declare another array, multi-input array. Array is declared by using square brackets. This second array we are using to hold collection of multi-input selected tokens. So these two are arrays we are declaring because we need to hold the values at runtime and we have to print the values on the screen. So try to declare arrays like this. It's an empty array at this stage. This is an empty array we are using. In the further code, we are going to hold collection of selected items text of multi-combo box. And this is initially an empty array. But in a further code, we are going to hold collection of selected tokens text from multi-input screen elements. So first declare empty array so that in the coming lines we can hold collection of selected items from multi-combo box. We can hold collection of selected tokens from multi-input. For that reason, we are declaring two separate arrays for two separate screen elements. Now for first screen element, multi-combo box, let us use one array here. Let us use for loop here. For is a JavaScript keyword. You can use var keyword, I equal to 0. Iteration I starts from 0. And you can use I less than. You can iterate up to total number of items. You have to iterate up to I less than total number of items. So you can use selected you can use this selected multi-combo box items dot you can use length. If 5 items are selected, so you'll get length as 5 dynamically. If 3 items are selected, you'll get total count as 3 if you use length keyword. If 2 items are selected, you'll get length as 2. That means total count as 2. But iteration starts from index 0. Index 0, index 1, index 2, that is how it will try to iterate. And we are trying to iterate up to I less than the total length or total count of selected items. And each time you need to increment by 1. So you can use I++. The iteration count will increment by 1. So use I++ here. Plus is an increment operator. And use flower brackets. Within flower brackets, capture the text of each selected item from multi-combo box. So you can use this selected multi-combo box items dot you can use get text. But what we need to do, we need to capture based on the iteration. So you have to use square brackets here and use iteration I. So when I is 0, you'll get first selected item text. When I is 1, you'll get second selected item text. When I is 2, you'll get third selected item text. When I is 3, you'll get fourth selected item text because of this line and because of this square brackets. In square brackets, we are using the variable I. When I is 0, you'll get first selected item text of multi-combo box. Similarly, when I is 1, you'll get second selected item text. That's how we are going to use this for loop iteration. I is 2, we'll get third selected item text. So that is how the iteration is performed here internally, because we are using square brackets with I. I can be 0, I can be 1, I can be 2. And each time I is incremented by 1. It will iterate up to I less than total length. So now whatever selected text we are capturing, first selected text, second selected text, third selected text, everything I want to pass it to one array. Whatever it may be, for each iteration, the text I want to pass it to array so that I can display on the screen for display as message. So that's the reason why you can use this multi-combo box array. Use multi-combo box array dot, you can use push method here. That's it. Use push method and close this. So what we are trying to do, we are capturing selected text for each iteration and we are trying to append it to multi-combo box array by using push method. On array, you can use push method to add the text to that array. So when I is 0, it will push or add first selected text to an array. Similarly, when I is 1, just assume like this, when I is 1 in for loop, it will push, or I can say it will add second selected text to an array, same array we are trying to append. And this iteration will continue till the total length, I less than total length of that selected items. Now the same syntax we are going to use for multi-input. This is the for loop for multi-combo box. Now the same, you can use it for multi-input. You can use for loop where I is already used, so you can use j here, j equal to 0. J less than this selected multi-input tokens dot length. Selected multi-input tokens dot length you can use. And each time you need to iterate by 1. So you can use j++. Iteration increments by 1 and use flower brackets. Okay, j equal to 0, j less than selected multi-input tokens dot length and j++. Now what you can do is, within this for loop, you can use selected multi-input items. This one, that means selected multi-input tokens dot, you can use get text here. It's not a single token, it's collection of tokens you can get. So that's the reason why you have to use a loop. We are writing this inside a loop and you can use j here. So what happens? Let me just repeat here. When j is 0, it will capture first selected token text from multi-inputs. Similarly, when j is 1, then second selected token text is captured here. It will capture second selected token text when j is 1 and so on. So when j is 2, in this for loop, during the execution, it will capture third selected token text here, because we are using j here before calling get text method. But each text I want to assign to an array. Each and every text of tokens I want to assign to an array so that I can display the values on it as a message here. So that's the reason why you can use multi-input array dot push method. Multi-input array dot, you can use push method to append or add each text to an array. So when you're using push method, when j is 0, first selected token text is assigned to an array. Very simple. When j is 1, When j is 1, what happens? Second selected token text is assigned to an array. Because we are using push method, and this push method gets executed within the for loop. So for multi-combo box, multi-input, we have followed the same strategy here by using for loop, because both these screen elements allows multiple selections. So let me save it at this level. Now, let me proceed further. What I want to do is, after capturing the values from various screen elements, I want to just display the values as a message here, so that we can recognize whether we are able to capture everything properly or not. I want to display values as message as of today. In the coming days, we are going to send values to backend OData service, and we are going to trigger insert, delete, update database operations in the coming days. So as of now, just display values as message here. So what you can do, if you want to display values as message, there are two techniques. So let me write it here. To display messages, you can use sap.m.messagebox. You can use success method, and you can provide some text here, a message text or a message value. Similarly, sap.m.messagebox.error, you can use error method, and you can pass message text in double quotes. sap.m.messagebox. There is another method like warning, and you can pass message text here. sap.m.messagebox.information, you can pass message text. And similarly, there is, I think there is alert method also, I'm not sure, but let me write it here. Alert method, and you can pass message text here. So success is one of the method. Success, error, warning, information, alert, these are the various methods of message box class. These are the various methods of message box class. These are static methods, so you can use class name dot method name. These are all static methods, so you can use class name dot method name directly. Class name dot method name. You need not create object for any class. Directly you can use class name dot method name, because according to documentation, these are static methods. Message box is a class name, success is a method name. And there is another technique, that is you can use sap.m. There is another class, that is message toast. While displaying, it will display message, but in the form of a different type of output you'll get, but same values with a different output. That means the presentation of that message will be slightly different if you are using message toast. Message toast contains one method, that is show method. Message box contains only one method, I think, that is show method. For show method, you can pass message text here. So to display messages, we can use these things. Message box dot this method, success, error, warning, information, alert, or you can use message toast dot show method. Message box is one class, message toast is another class. The presentation of that message will be slightly different for these two different classes. That you can experiment. So let me use SAP.m.message box I want to use. Message box. Dot, you can use some methods like alert, confirm, error, information, show, success, warning. You can see this. So different message methods are available here. So as of now, let me just use success method here. So message box is a class which contains all these as static methods. They are methods, but static methods. You can call class name dot method name. Alert, confirm, error, these are all methods. M is method here. Information, show is also one of the method. Success, warning. These are message box methods. Message box class methods. Let me use just success method as of now, and we can print some message text here. So what I want to do is, as of today, I want to print all these values now. User ID, first name, last name, everything I want to print it. So you can pass it here. User ID plus, let me give some space, plus F name, plus give some space, and let us print L name, space, then email ID, plus, you can use plus here, plus, you can give some empty space, and you can print, after email ID, you can print country, then salary, mobile number, then password, the password is one of the variable, you do some empty space plus other values, like after password you can see there is checkbox status, switch status, rating value, slider value, progress value, date value, time value, text area. So let me print all these things. So checkbox status plus switch status plus rating value. After switch, what is that? After switch, there is rating, then slider, progress indicator. So there is a rating value. That's a variable plus slider value. Then progress value. Let me use progress value. That's a variable name. Plus date value, time value, text area. Okay, date value plus time value plus something like text area value. We're printing all those things. Then date, time, text area. Now there is drop down box value, combo box value. Drop down box value plus combo box value. plus radio button text. Radio button text plus now here there are multiple values that will come from multi-combo box. So you need to print this multi-combo box array. Multi-combo box array finally contains all the selected item text. Multi-input array contains all the multiple selected tokens text from multi-input. So you have to print arrays now, especially for multiple selections, you have to print arrays. So let me print this multi-combo box array plus multi-input array. Multi-combo box array, then multi-input array. So you can close that statement now and end with semicolon. Unexpected token, so there is some issue here, maybe. Okay, so now the code is corrected. We are just trying to print all the values of various screen elements that are captured in the above coding. If you want to remove these warnings, you can remove this by using some space after each operator. After each operator, if you give some space, one space, then it will go. The warnings can be erased. Okay, so now you can see we are able to print all the values of various screen elements which are captured in the above code here. So let us try this, whether it is really working or not. You can save and run this. So there is a form here. Along with that, there is a button also available as submit button. So what we'll do is we'll try to provide all the values here. For example, all these values. Password. And I'm selecting checkbox, which also I'm selecting yes. And rating, let me make it 3-star. Percentage from slider, 67. Let me make it 67. Select date. Date, let me select 23rd February. Time, let me make it 9:10 a.m. And after time 9:10 a.m., let me provide some comments here. For example, Oasis. Then there is a drop-down box. In drop-down box, I'm selecting India. From combo box, I'm selecting SAP Fiori. From radio button group, I'm selecting SAP OData. From drop-down, I'm selecting India. From combo box, I'm selecting SAP Fiori. From radio button group, let me select SAP OData. And then there is multi-combo box here. From multi-combo box, let me select SAP UI5 and something like SAP ABAP. Two values I've selected. SAP UI5, SAP ABAP, I've selected from multi-combo box. And then from multi-input, I'm selecting UK, Iran, and US. Three values I'm selecting. UK, Iran, and US from multi-input screen element. Now let me click on submit button here. When you click submit button, you can see we are able to capture all the values from various screen elements, and then we are able to print a success message here. We have used success message method from message box class. So it will display green color line with a green color icon and a success text And these are the values that are captured from various screen elements. You can see user ID, first name, last name, email ID, country, salary, phone number, then this is password. Checkbox is selected, it's true. Switch is selected as on, so it is true. Rating is 3. Rating is 3. 67 is slider value. 80 is progress indicator value. 23rd February, that is date value. 9:10 AM, that is time value. After that, Oasis is coming from text area. India is coming from drop down box. SAP Fiori from combo box. SAP OData coming from radio button group. Then SAP UI5, SAP ABAP, these two values, these are the two values that are coming from multi-combo box here. And UK, Iran, US, these are the three values that are coming from multi-input screen element here. Two values from multi-combo box, three values from multi-input. So we are able to succeed in capturing all these things. Say suppose if I change the values, okay, let me just provide some space here. After switch, let me provide some space. Now let me run it again. So whenever you try to provide values, always it will capture the latest values when you click on submit button. Submit button is triggering event handler in controller. So here, let me just provide once again different values. 2001. So I'm selecting box. Switch is also yes. Rating, for example, 2-star slider with 39%, and date picker 15th February, time picker 10:15 PM. And then let me select comments, for example, Oasis from drop down box. Now this time let me select drop down box with China, and from combo box I'm selecting OData. From radio button group I'm selecting SAP Fiori. From multi combo box I'm selecting UI5 and CRM. And from multi input, let me select UK, Italy, Iran, something like this. Now, if I click submit button, it will capture always the latest values. When I click submit button, it always captures the latest values here, and it is printing some success message. Like you can see 2001 Suman Kumar, suman@ca.com. So these are the latest values. It is capturing SAP UI5, SAP CRM. This is from multi-combo box. UK, Italy, Iran from multi-input screen element. So ultimately, we are able to capture the values of all the screen elements, whether it is single value or collection of values, everything is captured here. So we are able to succeed. What you do is, in your view file, try to adjust your simple form code for all these things. Let me provide up to here. Within simple form, adjust all these lines. Up to here. Along with button. So what you do is just step 1, go to object view .xml file and update your simple form code as below. Because it contains IDs, button, event handler, everything. Step 2 is simple. Open object controller.js file. Implement event handler as below. So let me copy these lines. Open object controller because object view is associated with object controller. So go to object controller, implement this event handler with this functionality. Right, so now step 3. Save all the files, run the app. View file and controller file. All the files means view file and controller file on the application. Now here we are able to experiment and we are able to get this. If I change the values, so dynamically it will capture the latest values. It will capture latest values always. So if I click submit button, now you can see it is capturing the latest values whatever is selected. So event handler always executes the controller functionality by capturing the latest values from these simple form screen elements. But let me give one basic syntax before I close today's session. What we have done is we have used a syntax like this. This dot get view dot by ID. We have provided ID of the screen element. ID of screen element. Then we have used get value method. So basically what you need to do is if you analyze step by step, it's very simple. This is a self-reference to a controller. Let me write it like this otherwise. Use this statement. This is just a self-reference. Use this dot get view. You will get the reference of that view. You will get the reference of that particular view associated with that controller. This dot get view dot by ID. This dot get view dot by ID. By ID. Provide the ID of screen element here. In the coming days, we are going to use ID of table, ID of list, and other charts, microcharts, etc. Provide ID of screen element. You'll get the reference of that screen element. This dot get view dot by ID. Provide the ID of screen element. You'll get the reference of that screen element. Okay, let me make it like this. Screen element ID. Screen element ID. Yeah. Next, if I use this dot get view dot by ID, provide the ID of screen element. After that, you can call getter method or setter method depending upon requirement. Every property contains two methods. You can call whichever method you want. Getter method to capture the value, setter method to assign the value. Very common code which we use it in Fiori apps. In freestyle Fiori apps, it's a very common code which we are going to use it every day almost, this type of technique. So first thing is Okay, let me put it like this. So here, first this if I just use this, then that is just a self-reference of a controller. We are writing the code in controller, so this refers to self-reference of that controller. We are writing this statement in controller, so this by default refers to self-reference of that controller. If I use this dot get view, this dot get view will get the reference of that view associated with that controller. Just to get the reference of a view. This dot get view will get the reference of a view associated with that controller in which the code is implemented. And this dot get view dot by ID. So here you will get the reference of screen element. Just to get the reference of screen element of that view. You'll get the reference of screen element of that view if you pass the ID of that screen element. And here, after using screen element ID, we can call getter method or getter method or setter method on that screen element, depending upon the property. So here, is to capture value from the screen element in general. Getter method is to capture value from screen element. Setter method is to assign value to the screen element. So this is the approach we have followed in today's session. We're just straight away using this statement, this dot get view dot by ID, and we are calling getter methods in order to capture the values. But if you go step by step, then first is self-reference of a controller. The second is to get reference of a view. Third one is to get the reference of screen element. The fourth one is to capture value from screen element. Or you can assign value to screen element. First, we have to access the controller by using this. Then you have to get the reference of a view. After that, get the reference of screen element by using its ID. Then you can capture the value or you can assign the value from that screen element. So just remember this, very simple, very important, very commonly used from now onwards. Most of the assignments, most of the requirements will be based on this, especially when you write the code in controllers. This is a common code to start with. Okay, so let me save this. This is like syntax. Okay, I'll stop here. In the next session, we'll discuss in detail. We'll try to deal with other screen elements, not only just simple form. We'll try to focus on list. We will focus on list screen element. We can focus on table screen element to capture values from table, capture values from list. Then I'll take up the doubts. I'll clarify the doubts at that stage. First practice up to here. Okay.